Welcome to 2022 on the Too Tall Sports Podcast. Can you believe it? We made it to season 3. And yes, I go by the years. This is my third year doing this. Can you believe we are on season 3, over 85 episodes in, killing it now. It's I can't wait to do more this year and build this into hopefully a career this year. And I really appreciate everybody that's been along the journey since the beginning, even new listeners. I appreciate everybody that listens to the Too Tall Sports Podcast. So, man, it's going to be a year of the twos, isn't it? It's 2022. You're about to hear my 2 cent segment, and I got 2 of those today on the Too Tall Sports Podcast. A lot of energy going. Let's go. It's 2022. I'm ready. Let's go. So I got a big interview. In case you want to skip ahead and you don't want to hear my voice that much, that's okay. We'll go to my interview, and that's going to be in a few minutes with Trent Rush. He's a Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim pre- and post-game reporter. He works for 8:30 a.m. KLAA for all you Angels fans out there. Big, huge discussion on that. I interview him about his career and also a lot about the Angels. We talk a little bit about Angels in the outfield toward the end. It's kind of fun. Sports movies in general, baseball movies. It's a great conversation. I think you guys will enjoy that. But to start off 2022 and season 3, I have 2 cents segments for you to kick off this episode. So let me start. I'm going to first talk about Antonio Brown. If you don't know what's going on there, I'll get into that. And then I want to quickly talk about what Kirk Herbstreit said, ESPN analyst, saying college kids that sit out bowl games don't love football anymore. Okay. I'll get into that in a few minutes, but let me start with the mess that is Antonio Brown. You know, when is enough enough? How many chances do people get before you say, you know what, we're going to take something away from you that you love because you've become a nuisance and a menace to society at this point? Now, I am not Dr. Too Tall, even though I will play a Dr. Too Tall for a second. I don't know that he has CTE. I don't know if he has brain trauma, but I'm assuming he does, because the guy has took some pretty big hits in his career. And a lot of people this past weekend were pointing to him taking the big one from Vontaze Burfict, if you remember that name, ASU linebacker turned Cincinnati Bengal, when it was one of those rivalry games between the Bengals and the Steelers. And he hit Antonio Brown across the middle pretty hard in the head. But that's not the only hit he's taken in his career. He's taken other hits too. So if you don't know what's going on, let me explain a little bit. So Antonio Brown was on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They were playing against the Jets this weekend in New York. And mid-game, Antonio Brown took off his jersey and all the shoulder pads and left his team mid-game and ran into the locker room and left the stadium and was gone and was not heard from after that. And Bruce Arians, the coach of the Bucs, said he's no longer a Buck after the game. Now, they haven't released him officially yet. They're trying to figure out a way to do it. And his side of the story is that he said he was hurt and couldn't go back in. With what injury, Antonio? I watched you jog off the field. You were doing jumping jacks in the end zone on your way out, celebrating, and a complete sideshow. It was unbelievable, actually. And Coach Arians said he's never seen anything in his 30 plus years in football. He's never seen anything like this before, where a guy would leave and quit on his team like this mid-game. There was a time when Antonio Brown was the best receiver in football. You could argue 2017, 2018, he was that dude in Pittsburgh. He really was. And then everything started to unravel after that. So let me just read you some of the things that Antonio Brown has done the last 3 to 4 years. The first time you kind of saw the look at me, Antonio Brown, was a few years ago. Coach Tomlin was in the locker room with the Steelers, and Antonio Brown went live on Facebook while Coach Tomlin was addressing the team. I never understood it. I didn't know why he was doing it. It was a selfish look at me moment. That was the first time I was like, what's this guy doing? And this would never be allowed in any other clubhouse or locker room. Then he's had domestic violence issues. This is not in any particular order. He's had domestic violence issues with a mother of one of his kids. All the BS when the Raiders were still in Oakland, when he got frostbite on his feet because he wasn't protecting his feet in the cryo chamber when he was, doing the whole freezing his body thing for recovery. Got frostbite on his feet, couldn't practice. He was recording conversations, which is illegal in California, recording conversations of him and John Gruden, of basically Gruden coach at the time, telling him, hey, will you just come back and cut the shit? Like, come back and play. We don't have time for this anymore, this sideshow. Then he had an incident with a UPS driver. He's had allegations for rape and assault. And he showed up this year with a fake vaccination card. That only got exposed because he didn't pay his chef, who he owes thousands of dollars to allegedly. And now this BS of him running off the field on his teammates. That's not even everything, but who are we kidding here? When is enough for Antonio Brown? And the NFL is notorious for, if you're talented, we will find a spot for you, even if you've punched girls in the face before. In most cases, okay? I know Ray Rice had his incident and it was on camera and the world went, oh, that's what domestic violence looks like. Yeah. There have been other cases too. Kareem Hunt is playing for the Browns right now, was pushed or shoved or kicked his girlfriend at the time on video. There have been plenty of guys in the league. Josh Gordon, although it wasn't domestic violence, he's had 8, 9, 10 issues, times where he's tested out of the league for marijuana because it wasn't legalized. And he keeps getting chances in the league. If you're talented, you get chances. Everybody knows this. And football, NFL is the worst at it. They always look, it's about winning, right? It's always about winning. But when are we going to stop rewarding Antonio Brown for being talented in this league? I know it's a bottom line business and winning is important. And the Bucs are hurt at receiver right now. Godwin's out. Mike Evans did play this past weekend, but he's been hurt with hamstring injuries. Leonard Fournette's been hurt. They've had issues. Gronk's not always healthy. I get it. And Antonio Brown was vouched for by Tom Brady, let him live in his Tampa house when he was figuring things out in the beginning of the Tampa run. He scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl last year. So it's not like he wasn't important to the team. Okay. Antonio Brown was a big part of their Super Bowl run last year. But at what cost, though? At what cost of the image of your organization do you keep a guy on your roster like that? He doesn't need the NFL anymore. And I think the big arching overall message, and I learned this in my baseball career, the sport doesn't need you to move forward. The game will move on without you. NFL does not need Antonio Brown. It will do just fine without him. And just like every player that gets released or cut or traded in every sport, the game will move on without you. And I think sometimes when you get too big for your own good, you forget how good you have it in the league. Now, he probably has foundational issues. I'm just guessing. I don't know. I'm not going to diagnose him with CTE or anything like that. But it's clear he needs help. It's clear he needs to see a therapist or at minimum a sports psychologist because he doesn't have the support system. And I don't want to see the demise of Antonio Brown like some other guys that have had head trauma or CTE in the past. You know, guys like Junior Seau who have taken his own life. I don't want to see anybody do that and you get to that point where you're lost without the game or you're lost even with the game. I don't want to see that for Antonio Brown. But we cannot continue to reward his behavior that he's had in the last few years. When is enough enough? I'll let you guys, I'll leave it with that on that topic. You guys, feel free to hit me up on social media at Too Tall Sports Podcast. Comment on any of the stuff you see there. I'll leave it up to that in that regard with Antonio Brown. I hope we don't see the end of him as a person, but I think we need to see the end of him in the NFL. That's what I'm going to say about that. Something for you guys to chew on for this new year. I quickly want to get to what Kirk Herbstreit said about college football players. So if you missed it, Kirk Herbstreit is under a lot of fire for his comments. He's in ESPN. You know, he's on College Game Days. Used to play quarterback at Ohio State. And he does not like all of these guys sitting out bowl games because it's bad for the product. And he's saying they don't really love the game that much. Well, let me tell you something, Kirk. College football is a business. If you don't think so, why is every bowl game named after a sponsor? It's the All-State Sugar Bowl. It's the now Jimmy Kimmel has named a bowl game, right? The Chick-fil-A Bowl. There's always a name for their Little Caesars Bowl, right? There's always a sponsor. That's always a money grab. That's why it's finally these college players can get paid off their name, image, and likeness. The point I want to hammer home on this is, why aren't you calling out coaches who get a huge payday and leave before their team has a bowl game? Do they not love college football too? Or is it just the players who are looking out for their own safety to put themselves in the best position to get drafted in April in a few months? And they're going to sit out a meaningless Peach Bowl for you to watch. And big point here also, a lot of the games, a lot of the bowl games, almost all of them, coincidentally, Kirk worked for ESPN. a lot of the bowl games are televised on ESPN. Good players don't play, bad for the network. So he's a company man right now. But you know what? Brian Kelly's done this twice. Now the coach at LSU, he did it to Cincinnati when they were going to a big-time bowl game, and he did it to Notre Dame when they went just now to a big-time bowl game, and he left for LSU for the money grab. Lincoln Riley, Oklahoma had a big year this year. Now they did win their bowl game with Bob Stoops coming back, the legend, but Lincoln Riley left early before that bowl game, right after you tell me if he loves college football. The day after Oklahoma State beat them in a rivalry game, beat Oklahoma, the day after it's announced he's going to USC. Don't tell me you love college football that much. And you know what? You shouldn't, because it's a business and you go where the best opportunity is. And with Oklahoma going to the SEC, as everybody knows, with Texas, and they're going to get crushed in that conference by a lot of the upper, top tier talent in the SEC, you take a really good opportunity at USC to run the Pac-12 in Lincoln Riley. So back to Kirk's point, don't start criticizing the kids for sitting out bowl games to protect their livelihood, i.e. look at Matt Corral, the quarterback of Ole Miss. Dude got hurt in the bowl game. Now what? And it's a weak quarterback draft. This would be a good draft for Matt Corral at leaving Ole Miss to go to the draft. The only other kid that's notable, Kenny Pickett for Pittsburgh, sat out his bowl game, meaningless game. He's probably the number one quarterback to come off the board in April in the draft. I don't care what these commentators most people are not on his side on this, right? Unless you're playing for a national championship and 90% of these kids are not, maybe even then you'd play. But if we're being honest with ourselves, does the bowl game really mean anything in the grand scheme of their career? No. The goal of college football, you play for your school, you put your 3, 4, 5 years in, you've given the school enough time already. Christian McCaffrey did this at Stanford, and they played the meaningless bowl game, and he sat out. And for good reason. Look at Christian McCaffrey now. The dude's hurt all the time. I don't want to hear it, Kirk. So anyway, that's my point on that. You guys can agree, disagree. Let me know what you think. But there is no room until you start criticizing college coaches who leave early if you're going to start criticizing players for loving college football. And let's be real. It's all about money. It ain't about college football. Just like college basketball. It's about money. And March Madness is all about money. Anyways, I'm coming in hot today for this new year. Glad to have you guys in. I got a great interview with Trent Rush. I think you guys are going to love it. If you're an Angel fan, here you go. Here's a big Angel episode for you. And we talk about Ohtani, we talk about Trout. So I'll give you the intro in a second, but enjoy my interview with Trent Rush, one of the voices of the LA Angels, and glad to have you in on a brand new season 3, 2022. Excited to be here with you guys. Thank you as always for listening, and let's get to the interview. Talk to you soon. Welcome to the show. This is the Too Tall Sports Podcast. Thank you for joining me. My name is Brett Lauren, your host. As always, great to have you in. Got a cool interview today with a sports reporter for AM 830 KLAA. That is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim station. They broadcast all the Angel games, every single game. So I have Trent Rush, who is one of the reporters and on-air hosts and broadcasters there. He's an Orange County guy through and through, as we talk about in the episode. So Chapman University, went to Orange Lutheran, the whole deal. And he does UCI basketball as well for play-by-play. So we even talk about some baseball movies. It's a fun episode. A lot of Angels talk today because he's, plugged into the team. So all you Angel fans out there, you're welcome. As always, you can follow me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. That's on Instagram. On Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports. Check out my YouTube channel if you want to watch the interviews. I drop them every Thursday. We do them on there, not live, but I drop them every Thursday morning on YouTube. Just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe, hit the bell notification, like it, share it, comment something, send it to somebody. If you guys are enjoying the content, I'd really appreciate that. On the audio side, we're on Apple Podcasts. Just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. If you're there right now and you haven't done so, it takes 2 seconds. Look down at your phone for a minute if you can. Hit those 5 stars on my episode page on the Apple Podcast page. Check it out, 5 stars. And if you could leave a review or a comment on the bottom, that helps as well. Anything to help grow the show. The more 5-star ratings we have, the better it looks. So that would be much appreciated. You can also follow us on Spotify. Same thing, Too Tall Sports Podcast. That's TOO, not the number 2, TOO, Tall Sports Podcast. We're available everywhere you get your podcast. And enjoy my interview with Trent Rush. All right, welcome back to the Too Tall Sports Podcast. My next guest is a sports reporter for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim on AM 830 radio, KLAA. He's a correspondent on MLB Network for them as well. He is also the play-by-play voice for UC Irvine basketball and is an alumni of Chapman University, a true Orange County guy through and through. He is Trent Rush. What's going on, man?
It's going good, Brett. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for being on the show with me. I appreciate it.
Heck yeah. No, this is fun. And I appreciate the introduction to Orange County through and through, man. That's me. I love it here. I love it. It's the best place to live. I don't want to go anywhere else. This is awesome.
That's what I tell people, man. I mean, even during my minor league career, when I was traveling around the country, I was like, look, I'm coming back here because there's nowhere better than Orange County.
You pay a premium, but it's worth it.
100%. A lot of Angels baseball to get to. Trent's really plugged in with the team, so we'll get to that in a little bit. But I did want to get your story and background to start off with. I did see you went to Orange Lutheran High School, which is a football powerhouse. Did you play football or any sports there while you were at OLU?
Yeah, I played. I was on the football team, and I was the worst linebacker in the history of football. I was the only linebacker that couldn't tackle. So that made my career really quite short. But it had an opportunity to be part of that program under head coach Jim Kuna at the time. My first year, when I was a freshman, they ended up winning a state championship. And that was just an incredible experience to just be a part of the program in that time. And to be around it, and that was really special. And then to see what they did this year of going back and winning another CIF, their first one since then. Rod Sherman's the new head coach there, and he's doing an unbelievable job. But that was a pretty unique experience. It opened up a lot of doors for my broadcasting career. For one, because I wasn't any good, I would be on the sidelines, like doing play-by-play. So that was kind of just my first step into it. But by year two, I was making my way up into the broadcast booth. I was 15 years old, and I was helping out on a radio broadcast. The games were on radio at the time, which was a big deal for a high school then. Yeah. And I also got a chance to be with Fox Sports West. They did a game of the week, and Orange Lutheran being one of the more prominent teams, they got a lot of airtime on Fox, and Fox was doing a lot of their games. And Chris McGee, who's now Spectrum pre-post, time with the Lakers, rock star with the Lakers. It was him and John Jackson played at USC, and JJ is just a dear friend and just a great person and a great broadcaster. I got a chance to be around those guys, and I'm learning. I was the spotter for Chris McGee up in the booth with him, like pointing out tackles. And my parents, God bless them, my dad drove me one time to Westlake Village and to Norco. I didn't have a driver's license. I was 15 years old, and I was getting a first opportunity to do some of that stuff. So yeah, my high school career, being a really bad football player probably was the best thing that ever happened in my broadcast career.
Nice. That's awesome, man. That's cool. At 15, you even knew you could even, want to do that, or like that. That's to have the foresight of you always knew you seemed like you want to be a broadcaster, which is really cool.
Yeah, I wanted to be in sports. And when I was a little kid, I had a karaoke machine and like to pretend I was Regis Philbin. So I always had and I grew up, you grow up a Laker fan listening to Chick Hearn every night.
Sure.
I mean, just kind of, broadcasting was always of interest to me. But mostly it was about being in sports. I wanted to be in sports in some way. And for me, the doors opened to go the broadcast route. So that's just kind of overlapped there, and it worked out that way.
Right. And you decided to stay local in Orange County. I saw you went to Chapman University. Yeah. Were you considering any other schools, or what was it about Chapman that kind of drew you in to go there?
Yeah, I was Chapman and USC were the two that I was looking at. The biggest difference was I was ready to go. And it was one of those situations like, you see it, in sports sometimes. Do you go to one team and you have to sit on the bench and you wait for the starter to move on and then you take the role, or do you go somewhere where they're going to put the ball in your hands on day one? For me, Chapman allowed the opportunity to get rolling right out of the gate, and it's a phenomenal program. And Pete Weitzner, the professor at the time, was so good, and we had a pretty all-star group there. I mean, we all kind of took on like this little underdog role while we were at Chapman. But I look, Steven Nelson was in that group. Steven's now the host of Intentional Talk. On MLB Network. He's become just a rising superstar. He's doing Chicago Blackhawks games. I mean, Steven is the next big thing in sports broadcasting. he was there. He already is a big deal there. A guy named Joe Fan, reporter for the Niners, and he's linked up now with Steve Wynn down with his company in Vegas, and he's doing awesome there. And a buddy of mine, Matt Pritchard, was part of that group. He was a White House reporter. Now he's an anchor down in San Diego. So it's like all these, all of us at the time were just kind of screwing around doing, an hour of sports talk radio on the campus station for 4 listeners. And, and I say 4 listeners now as a joke. But no, then they kept the number, like there actually were 4 listeners. So that's what it was. And you did it, you tried to get better, but it was a pretty cool camaraderie being with a group of, hardworking individuals that, did care. There was a little chip on the shoulder when you went to Chapman. We're a Division III program, but we treated, our D3 sports as if they were Division I, and it gave us a lot of opportunities. So I was really excited to be a part of that, and that was just a really fun thing for me. I couldn't have made a better decision.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, hey, as they say, you're getting your reps in at that time. So that's all, you got to get those practice sessions, I guess. Before we get to the Angels, as I mentioned at the top, you're a play-by-play for UCI basketball, which is really cool. Yeah. What's it been like for you doing that, and how did that all come about?
It's really fun. So when I was at Chapman, for Chapman News, we did a weekly news station, or a weekly news show, and we were on the local station in the city of Orange, public access channel 3. You could watch us on local TV, but we treated it like it was a big deal. And part of what we did, I was the sports director. So we would go, and I applied everywhere. Whoever would give us a credential, I applied. Well, the Big West Conference was a place that would always, they wanted the media coverage. They would give us credentials. So we'd go and we did a little trade-off. I would shoot it, give them the footage. They credential us. We get the experience. They get the video they want. It worked out. Nice. So we did that, got to know the Big West people from that, got hired on when the Big West set up a contract with ESPN3, did some stuff with ESPN. I'm 20 years old, getting a chance to do that, which was just stupid. But it was just an incredible opportunity. Did that, and through working with the Big West and that ESPN3 package, got to know the people at UC Irvine. And then coincidentally, UC Irvine and AM 830 reached an agreement to carry the games on radio on AM 830. So when that happened, it just seemed like a natural opportunity to be able to kind of have both of my worlds collide there by doing the UCI basketball games.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it seems like it's never a straight line in the world of broadcasting or radio. It's like, you're not going to just go, as you said, getting ESPN at 20s early. What's it been like? Because I saw you bounce around a little bit to different stations. How is that you just kind of take the next opportunity that's given to you?
Yes. For me, quite honestly, what I'm doing now with the Angels is my first home job. It's for a long time, it's been, you just pick up as many freelance things as you can get. And that's just kind of the nature of this business, especially, for me being able to stay in Southern California. It was, a huge deal. I was very prepared to go elsewhere. I was going to go the local news route. And I was just in Palm Desert the other day, and I interned at a station out there, and I was fully prepared. Like, that's where I was going to start my career. And then, maybe you go from Palm Springs, and then you try to bounce to a San Antonio, and then you try to go to Phoenix or a Denver, and make your way back to San Diego, or gosh, if you hit the lottery, you get back to Los Angeles. That was kind of the path that I was hoping and was prepared to take. But, for me, I've had just enough freelance opportunities in Southern California to make it work long enough to where I've been able to be here with the Angels for a while, and can kind of call this home and make a career of it. And it's a weird path. Everything is connected, and then everything's not connected at all at the same time. It's just really interesting how that pans out. But nobody's the same. Everybody's different. It's not like, I got this job that led to this job. It was, this job got me this, which I got to know this person, which helped me know somebody here, which then led to this. Like you said, there's no straight line.
Right. Exactly. Real quick on UCI, they've had a couple tournament runs in recent history. So what's it been like for you to, the Big West? I went to Long Beach State for 1 year also, so I know the Big West a little bit. The conference just doesn't get a lot of respect. It's not the Pac-12, but there's a lot of talent in that conference. So as far as the program it goes basketball wise for UCI, and they have a great baseball program too. What's it been like to be around those programs?
So the biggest thing for me is I love being part of a team, and that's where, in broadcasting, so much you do on your own. to be able to do stuff as part of a team is really special. That's why I like doing it so much. And you feel like you're part of the family. And Russ Turner, their head coach, I think is a tremendous head coach. We have a lot of the same values when it comes to the way basketball is to be played. It's an emphasis on defense and rebounding and toughness. That's what that program is all about. So I love being a part of that too. That's important to me, to be part of a brand of basketball that I like watching. I mean, that's important. And UCI they're really good. They win a lot, which also helps. They've been awesome. Getting a chance to be not just at the NCAA tournament, but when they beat Kansas State in 2019, that was unlike anything I've ever been a part of. You get a chance to be at some big games, but in the media storm and the circus that comes around with that, you when you're Cinderella at the NCAA tournament, it's no different than being at an All-Star game or an NBA Finals or a World Series situation. I mean, it's that big when you get to be Cinderella, because on top of that, you're not used to handling any of it. So I'm going around helping some of the players as like the media liaison for some of these folks. But it was really cool to experience, and the players got such a great experience out of this too. To be Cinderella at March Madness. We were a 13 seed that upset a 4. It was a year where there were not a ton of upsets. Everyone wanted to be Sister Jean and Loyola Chicago.
Yeah.
It didn't pan out. We ended up losing the second round to Oregon, but for about 48 hours, these guys were rock stars. And
That's
awesome. It was cool to watch that.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. From one Cinderella story to a team that was just okay this past year. I hate to say it, but the 2021 Angels season, how would you characterize, they got a lot of talent. Again, they missed the playoffs. Obviously, we'll get to Ohtani in a second. Just overall, how would you summarize this past year for the Angels?
Obviously, it was one that was challenging. And the whole deal has been trying to find pitching, and you find an ace in Shohei Ohtani, and then you try to bring in 2 more front end guys to go along with him. And right now, the Angels, I think, have one in Noah Syndergaard, which they've gotten this offseason. But this past year was tough, and also, you're kind of. The Mike Trout injury was particularly disappointing, and Anthony Rendon really not being himself when he was on the field, and then him missing a lot of time too. That was equally disappointing. For Trout, he plays in 36 games, and at the time you're thinking it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks, and then 6 to 8 weeks come and go, and then it's another 6 weeks, and then that comes and goes, and you're like, what's going on here? When's Mike going to get back? And then this ended up being a thing where it's lingering, and then you're kind of hopeful, like, okay, well, if the Angels can just hang on, at least be in the mix for a wild card, then maybe you get Trout back for the final month. And the Angels never really were able to get themselves into that position. They had some good moments, I thought, early in the year. Getting a chance to watch Shohei Ohtani was spectacular. I think we're all going to remember the 2021 season for Shohei Ohtani as something that we're going to tell our grandkids about someday. I think it's that significant what Ohtani did this year. But, obviously the team success means more than anything else. And the Angels haven't won enough games lately. I think we saw some growth. I think you have an emerging, great player in Jared Walsh, who's at first base. I think you feel good about your corner outfielders and Joe Adell and Brandon Marsh moving forward and what those guys might be able to be eventually. For Adell to make the progress he made after struggling so much in the COVID year, to bouncing back and showing great steps in 2021 was a big deal. You feel like the pieces are there offensively.
Right.
You just have to get the pitching, and the Angels are going to have a really good bullpen this year. I'm excited about that. And the starting rotation, in my opinion, they need one more big piece, but with a significant piece in the front of the rotation, then all of a sudden, I actually think the starting rotation can be pretty good moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just kind of want to further the point on Ohtani. I would even say it's fair. It's definitely fair to say he is the modern day Babe Ruth. Like, he just is. Like, we've never seen anything like this. No brainer for MVP. If you could elaborate on like what we watched with him last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's so hard to describe because it was that phenomenal. You take what you saw, like what Babe Ruth did as a two-way player. He really had 2 great years of being a two-way guy. That was the 1918 season and the 1919 season. What Shohei Ohtani did in 2021 blew those seasons out of the water.
Right.
The biggest thing for me was Ohtani as a pitcher. We all know he's a great hitter. He's had a lot of chance to show that. He's got the pop that we've seen since 2018 when he first arrived. Shohei Ohtani, the pitcher, was a thrower for a long time. Somewhere in the middle of this past season, he developed into trying to figure out the way that he can get, shorter outings, and by throwing fewer pitchers and going deeper into games. That's what I mean by shorter.
Yeah.
Get more outs and throwing fewer pitches, pitch much more efficiently. Shohei Ohtani is the single most efficient human being I've ever met when it comes to his workload, the way he trains, and then making sure that he's got the proper time to sleep and rest. I mean, he puts together the schedule, and nobody can tell him what to do. I mean, hey, Shohei, you do you. You know your body. Nobody else has done this. There's no blueprint for how this is supposed to pan out. Shohei, you do it. And he's got this thing dialed in to the second. He knows exactly how many pitches he's going to throw, exactly how many swings he's going to take, how many reps he's going to do when he's working out, how many hours and minutes he needs to sleep. Ohtani has this thing maximized to a way that there's going to be other people that come in baseball that have the ability and the talent to be a two-way player. I don't know that anyone is going to have the discipline to be a two-way player. That's what separates Shohei Ohtani. It's the single most incredible thing I've ever seen is watching this guy just go about his day. It's beyond phenomenal.
Wow. Yeah. I that's awesome. It's really cool to hear that. And it reminds me when you said, he knows exactly, when he missed that, when you guys, I think we're in the Bay Area and he missed a BART or he missed his drive or something and he couldn't start.
Yes. Well, it goes to show you, he still hit that night. I think he had a couple hits.
Okay.
But so he's still hitting that game. But yeah, he was supposed to pitch. And yeah, when everything is so regimented and so strict and dialed in, anything that you're going to throw off the routine. And I don't know exactly how the conversation went down,
sure.
But I think Joe, I don't know if Shohei said, I don't want to start, or I think Joe, probably knowing Joe said, Shohei, hey, hit tonight. If you want to hit tonight, but we'll pitch tomorrow. There's no reason for you to go tonight. I think that's kind of how Joe thinks. So I would imagine that's how that played out. But you're right. That's a good point. And that's a story. I am still wanting to know the full story, because at that moment, remember in May, like Ohtani was huge, but he wasn't like superstar in America huge.
Right.
Because, he was big, but Shohei went on the BART and nobody knew. Like he was just like he wasn't stopped by anybody and people weren't trying to take a bunch of pictures. If he tried to do that today, he couldn't take 2 steps. But in May, he could. And that's just crazy to me.
It is crazy for sure. The other generational talent the Angels have, you mentioned him, is Mike Trout. He's been so good for so long, sidelined with injuries last year. And same kind of thing with Rendon. You did kind of allude to it, but like when this team is fully healthy, they just haven't been able to get to the playoffs. What do you think it looks like if everybody is playing?
You're talking about certainly a top 5 offense in baseball. I would argue maybe even top 3. I think that there's not going to be a better combination of 2 players than you're going to find in the game than Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. And then if Anthony Rendon can be the Rendon we saw in 2019 when he won a World Series in Washington, all of a sudden now you're talking about the best trio of players that you're going to find in any offense. And I'm putting up with anybody in baseball. I think those guys that spectacular. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that. The question has never been about the Angels at the top. It's about how they fill in elsewhere. And I think they have enough good pieces around them that if those guys are themselves, there's a chance for this team to be elites. And sure. That's the goal. And that's one thing that, look, the Angels are the only team in baseball over the last 5 years to have losing records in all 5 of them. I want to see this Angels team also not just have the mentality of, hey, let's try to get to the playoffs. Let's try to get to October and win in October, because I think that the top end talent is there. Everybody knows the Angels need pitching, and trust me, within the organization, there's not a soul that doesn't know that. The Angels are doing everything they can to get as much high end pitching as they possibly can get. I think bringing in Noah Syndergaard again was a huge pickup. But when this offense is right, it could be historically great with Trout. Hopefully, you like to think still in his prime. He has a couple more years of that left. Shohei Ohtani in his prime. Anthony Rendon hanging on to his prime. And then even when those guys are like not in prime years, it's not like Trout's going to fall off the face of the earth. No. I think that, when Trout's 33, 34, he's still going to be really good. It just might not be what he is at 29 and 30. So sure. I think that, while some people say, oh, the window's closing on Trout, Well, it's not like at 32 he's done. I mean, he's going to be fine even when he's 35. I'm not worried about Mike.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you mentioned you guys signed Noah Syndergaard to the 1-year deal. You know, he hasn't pitched really in 2 years. But when healthy, I saw his numbers, you know, 4 or 5 in the last 4 or 5 years. Before that, it's pretty damn good. So what do you see with Syndergaard? Can he be an ace really outside of Ohtani?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to be. You know, the thing is for Syndergaard too, like guys coming off of Tommy John, it's not what it was 10, 15 years ago. Like it happens and you come back and then there's some people that would go further to say, oh, well, you're better. I'm not, you're never going to be better physically. You can maybe get close to what you were, but where guys improve is usually on pitch selection and maturity and how to really become pitchers and know what to throw in certain moments. And I think that's where Syndergaard is going to be good. It's a 1-year, $21 million deal. And when I look at what Max Scherzer got this year, and when I look at some of the big money, longer term contracts guys are getting, I think Syndergaard at $21 million looks to me like an incredible bargain. And on a 1-year prove it deal, it's a prove it deal for both sides. It's a prove it deal for Syndergaard because if he has a great 2022 in 2023, Syndergaard could be a $40 million pitcher. I mean, the talent is there.
Sure.
And on the Angels' perspective, they are counting on him to be that ace. So they're counting on him to be a $40 million arm and get it at $21 million. And the Angels still have room. They have room to get stuff done. Obviously, you know, everyone kind of saw this lockout coming. You wanted to see at least be able to put something together before that happens, but it's not like the offseason's over. I think Perry Manasseh and the Angels general manager has done a great job of getting the Angels to the point where they are better right now than they were a year ago. Do they have more to go? No question. They have to continue to get better. But I do think that the starting point for 22 is higher than what the starting point was for 21.
Sure. And they also signed local Cal State Fullerton legend, Michael Lorenzen. Could he become one of the guys in the rotation now?
It sounds like that's the plan. And, you know, I mentioned doing the stuff for the Big West Conference. We did baseball too. I remember calling Lorenzen's games and he'd be out. He'd be the best player on the field. He'd be the all-star center fielder and he'd be hitting 350.
Oh, that's right. He can hit too. Yeah.
Yes. And he would run in from center field to close games. That's what Lorenzen's role was.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, he's got the metrics. I mean, he's throwing 100 now. He's throwing a lot harder. He's got a much better pitch mix than he had when he tried being a starting pitcher 3-4 years ago. I think it's an experiment for the Angels, and it's one that I think it's a relatively low risk experiment because if it doesn't work, again, it's a 1-year deal,
sure, and
he could just move right into the bullpen, and then you bolster this bullpen and make it even greater. But he wants to start. The Angels are going to give him the opportunity to start, and I think it's a risk worth taking for the Angels because again, sure, the downside is if it doesn't pan out, well, then he just slides in and bolsters his bullpen.
Right, exactly. And speaking of pitching, you know, the Angels, I think it was 2 years ago, drafted 20 pitchers in the MLB draft. Obviously, at least it seems like there's an emphasis on pitching. So what does that kind of signal to you about what the organization's really trying to do?
I'll just tell you what Perry Manasseh has told me directly. He has told me he wants Angels baseball to be known as a pitcher's organization. That's what they're trying to create here with this front office. They want, you know, everyone knows the Angels for offense. Perry wants the Angels to be known for pitching. Yeah, you draft 20 pitchers, 19 of them being college arms. You're wanting pitching that's going to be in the big leagues soon and really reset this entire organization on that front and completely flip the script, completely change the narrative for how people perceive Angels baseball. I think Perry's doing a really good job at that, and it just takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. And even and whether it's 22 or 23, I think the things that Perry's talking about, you're probably going to see more in 24 and 25 and down the road for the Angels. There's no way to just become, okay, all of a sudden we're a pitchers organization now. You can't just flip the switch and make that happen. But the Angels are taking all of the steps to do that in an appropriate way. And that's what's exciting to see, that the groundwork is being laid. And some of those guys, I mean, you look at, you know, Patrick Sandoval and Jose Suarez, these are homegrown guys that, well, Sandoval semi-homegrown, brought in over a trade, but you're seeing them now come to the big leagues and making an impact, and it's fun to watch that. So it's starting to come around for the Angels. It's just going to take some time.
Sure. They did sign a couple relievers, one of them being your closer, Raisel Iglesias, came back on a 4-year deal, which is a great signing for you guys. And then you got this the lefty from the Mets, Aaron Loop, who was lights out last couple of years. So going into the back end of your bullpen in 22, that's pretty strong on the 8th, 9th inning.
Yeah, I think you're going to be hard-pressed to find a better tandem in the American League than Loop and Iglesias there at the end. You know, Iglesias finished second in the American League in saves last year, but the Angels still had the most inherited runners to score in all of baseball last year. The bullpen numbers as a whole, despite Iglesias, were way down. Yeah. I think the biggest difference for the Angels coming into 22 is, you know, maybe you bring back a handful of the guys that you used in late inning situations last year, but if you put them in roles where maybe they're in a 6th inning or a guy that you would have that once was protecting a lead, now in a situation just trying to keep the game close, I think if you change the roles for some of these guys, you might have a little different impression of them. But when you can go and know you have Iglesias and Loop at the back end of games, you're really only needing seven innings out of the rest of your starters, because with that 0.95 ERA, again, best ERA of any reliever in baseball last year was Loop. And we know Iglesias is the best lockdown closer the Angels have had in the last decade. So it's fun seeing that that's coming for the Angels. But yeah, it's about getting those first 7 innings accomplished, and they have the offense. There are a few pieces in the starting rotation that are really exciting. And I do think that you got to add at least one more guy, maybe get another arm in that bullpen, and then you have a real chance to have a pretty solid top half pitching kind of situation, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about Joe Madden. So, you know, he's known to be a player's manager. He's got World Series experience. You know, he's a culture changer. So what's it been like, in your opinion, as far as the locker room or when you deal with Joe Madden? Has he changed the culture yet, or does he just simply need more talent and then he can really implement his stuff?
No, the culture has totally been changed. And even so, Noah Syndergaard even said in his introductory press conference that he was talking with Steve Cishek, and Cishek said this was the most fun room he's ever been a part of. I think being a part of a good clubhouse is a big deal, and Joe Madden has totally created that. You know, I started my career, you know, with Mike Scioscia as the Angels manager, and that was, you know, I have so much respect, and I love Mike Scioscia. Then you bring in Brad Ausmus, and then the next year, Joe Madden comes in, and all of a sudden, you know, he just brings in this wave of fresh energy. The success in Chicago, sure, he's very pleasant to deal with from a media perspective. I mean, he's great. You can't get Joe to shut up sometimes. Joe's just beautiful. We absolutely love Joe Madden. But you know, because of those kind of things, it just makes it a good place to be around. You look forward to being at the ballpark. And even down to Joe saying like, hey, how come why do baseball players get to the ballpark at 1:30 for a 7:00 game? He goes, get here at 4. Like, as long as you get your stuff done, go lace it up and let's go play. There's no reason to do some things that, oh, I'm here just for show. I'm going to go work out super early so I show that I'm doing something. Do it on your own. You know what you need to get done. And I think that Joe has brought that. It's going to be interesting to see how the coaching staff ends up shaking out here for the 22 season. But, you know, with Joe Madden at the helm, I think that there's really exciting things to come. He is flipping the narrative and with what the Angels are all about.
Sure. No, that's awesome, man. And just a general question, as far as, you know, the Angels, it doesn't seem like, obviously I live in Orange County, but the Dodgers have a lot more media pressure on them to be good. The Angels, it just doesn't feel like that. What does that feel like to you? Or is there enough pressure to make this team be relevant? Or is it just, we'll wait till they get good and then we will be excited?
You know, it's funny you bring that up. So on a day-to-day level, like daily, the pressure with the Dodgers, of course, is going to be higher.
Yeah.
There is a historical legacy pressure with the Angels that I think is far greater than what the Dodgers probably feel when you're talking big picture. There is a pressure for Mike Trout to not be Ernie Banks. There is a pressure to get Mike Trout success. That is real. That exists, and that's national. That's global. And even adding to that now, Shohei Ohtani is an MVP season. So wait a minute. We have an all-time great player in Mike Trout. You have a guy that's coming out with maybe the greatest season ever in Shohei Ohtani, and you're still not winning? What's going on? That's pressure that I think is far beyond what any other team is. That's more than Yankee pressure right there when you consider the historical legacy aspect of this. And believe me, that's being felt by the Angels. The Angels are doing everything they can. I know
sure.
I'm sitting here on the second floor. The guys that make the decisions are one floor above where I'm sitting right now, and they feel it. They know how important it is to get Mike Trout, not just to October, but to win in October. And for Shohei, it's the same thing. You have this unbelievable confluence of two of the all-time great, historically great players in your clubhouse at the same time. You got to win with those guys. And trust me, the Angels are leaving no stone unturned to do everything they can to do that.
Sure, definitely. So the AL West has had some big free agent signings so far before the lockout. You know, the Mariners spent big money on Robbie Ray. The Rangers spent $500 million on Seager and Simeon. What are your thoughts on the AL West maybe rising a little bit to try to match the talent that the Angels have?
Man, I think, I think, you're trying to match the top end talent the Angels have. Everyone's chasing the Astros. Like the Astros are the class for sure.
Sure.
And Oakland's a seller. So Oakland is going to be down theoretically. Somehow Oakland always seems to be good. I don't know how they do it, but they somehow manage to do it. I don't think that there's a tougher division in baseball with the floor being raised and the ceiling being raised with this division. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out, especially in Texas. I think Texas is going all in to make sure that, 2022 and 2023 are good, maybe doing that at the expense of the franchise for the following decade. It's going to be hard to see. I mean, they spent a lot of money, and Corey Seager is a fine player, a really good person. I like Corey Seager, but 10 years of $325 million for a guy that's not a Hall of Famer seems like an incredible amount of money to spend. But credit to the Rangers. They're tired of being in last place. They want to rise. They know it's expensive to try to rise. So they're doing that. So we'll see. I mean, but the division is tough. I mean, I don't think that there's any division even close in terms of just the amount of talent than what's in the AL West. So that should make for, you know what? And I like it. And that means if you're able to get through the West and you win this division, you've gone through the gauntlet of the regular season. That means you're October ready. And I think that's a good thing.
Sure. Yeah. Some would argue the NL West has a lot of the Giants and Dodgers, but that's on the top end. I'm with you there. The Rockies, Diamondbacks.
You also get to play the Rockies
right.
and the Diamondbacks. That's the difference.
No, it's true. 100%. Just a random question. So you've been at AM 830 for a little while. What's it like to work with the legend, Roger Lodge?
Roger's great. Roger's really fun. And it's been a tough time for our station with the passing of James Allen, who was Roger's producer for over a decade. And James and I were close, and that's been tough for sure to get through that. The way things have kind of played out here of late is on top of what I'm already doing. I'm helping Roger in the afternoons, booking his show. I'm getting to spend a lot more time on the air with Roger, and we're doing some segments together. So, for a lot of years, I would do a lot in the mornings and late at night, and then Roger handled, basically the work day. And we didn't overlap a ton. But this last year, we've become really close, and I really enjoy working with him. He's just a really, really good person. And if anybody ever gets a chance to get to know him, Roger's a special guy. So I think that it's fun hearing. The thing I love about the show too, on the Sports Lodge, is you can feel the heart. Like Roger loves sports, and we could talk sports all day, but when he brings on like legends of the past and current coaches and just talks about leadership and work ethic and those kind of things, I mean, that makes you want to run through a wall for these guys. And you get that on the show. So for me, I love that. That's sports talk that's different than what you're hearing a lot of other places. And it's fun to be a part of a show that's like that. It's really rewarding, quite frankly.
Gotcha. That's awesome, man. That's great to hear. Only one somber note, but you can bring up the night. I saw you were interviewed about this. I played with Tyler Skaggs in the minor leagues.
Yeah. Okay.
Obviously, RIP, he tragically passed away. I played with him in AA and AAA. But I saw you said one of your favorite moments was the night they honored him. The Angels threw a combined no-hitter. What do you remember about that night?
It was incredible. And obviously there's a lot that's been learned after that we didn't know at the time. But that doesn't take away from how special that night was. July the 12th, when the Angels got back from the All-Star break, first home game back, the combined no-hitter. I mean, Taylor Cole and Felix Pena combined for the no-hitter. I mean, it was just the stars had aligned. You could feel that there was magic in the air. Like Trout hit a home run that night that went 454 feet, 45 front and back. Like he does that in the first inning. And the other thing too, I'm pretty sure it was on the first pitch. You knew it. I know it was in his first at bat, but you just knew Trout was going to homer in that game. That it was a thing of legend to see Trout do that, and to hit the ball the way he did. Tyler's mom, Debbie, threw out the first pitch that night. It was an incredibly emotional evening. Everyone wearing the 45. You felt the Angels family in a big sense, and the Angels family included the 45,000 people in the stands that night, and included the hundreds of thousands of people watching on television that night, and the millions across the globe that read about the Angels daily and want to follow this team. That's the Angels family. That was all felt right there. I'll remember, like, I was on the field when the no-hitter was completed. I was there to do the post-game interview on the field. And I remember, like, I was with Alex Curry. Alex was just in tears. And it was hard not to be in tears. There wasn't a dry eye in the building at that moment. But I remember standing on the field and looking around and seeing the Big A just go absolutely crazy. And we brought over Dustin Garneau, who caught that no-hitter. And I was doing an interview with him. And we're talking about just how special that was. And I could see out of the corner of my eye, some players started walking to the mound. And maybe this wasn't the best thing to do as a reporter, but I said, Dustin, like, go be with your team right now. Come back to me. I mean, this is live radio, so maybe it wasn't the best radio that's ever happened. But I, as a human being, I could not keep Dustin from that moment. And I just, he just goes, and then everyone taking their jersey off. It's on the field. And I mean, there's nothing more powerful that he or I or anybody could say than that moment right there. And it was just really special. The thing I'll remember most about that night, honoring Tyler, was tremendous that happened. But more so, you felt all the love of the Angels family. And that's something, again, I'm from Orange County. I've been here. I was 2 years old. I felt that. And I think a lot of people felt a lot of the same emotions I did that night.
Totally agree. No, that's awesome to hear that. Just because you're from the area and I don't get to talk about the Angels that much. One of my favorite movies growing up was Angels in the Outfield. Is that one of your favorite movies?
People rip on Angels in the Outfield. It's a great movie.
There's so many quotable lines my buddy's doing all the time, dude. It's a great. I love it. And
it's like an all-star, like an elite cast, which nobody was big at the time. I mean, a couple guys were, but
Danny Glover, Tony Danza, Matthew McConaughey is playing center field. Like, are you kidding me? Yeah. Yes. Christopher Lloyd is the freaking Al, the Angel. Like, it's just great movie.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt was the kid. I mean, that is the whole thing. I mean, it's this all-star cast.
Yeah.
You know what's so funny? So I'm a little kid. I love that. I love Angels in the Outfield. I always kind of wanted to be Ranch Wilder. Like, I know Ranch is a jerk.
Yeah.
But maybe one night, like, I'll dress up as like Ranch Wilder and we do something here at the ballpark.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We got to do Angels in the Outfield one night. No, I love that movie. And
my favorite line is Mel Clark hasn't thrown a pitch in this decade.
Okay, so here's this. You got to check out Bleacher Report it was College Humor. It was College Humor that did it. And they basically did like an ESPN 30 for 30, but they did it about the movie. And it was so funny hearing the things. It's like, Tim Kirchin's on there and he goes, and the crazy thing, it felt like the Angels didn't play a road game the entire season. And it was pointing out some of the holes and the flaws in that movie. I don't care. Forget the plot holes. That was I love Angels in the Outfield to this day. I'm not going to say it's my favorite baseball movie of all time, but it is my favorite Angels baseball movie.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I guess while we're on the subject, obviously there's Rookie of the Year, Little Big League is underrated. I love Little Big League.
It is underrated.
I mean, Field of Dreams, obviously. There's a lot of baseball movies. So, any other ones that off the top of your head that you like?
So, maybe everyone loves On the Sandlot, and don't get me wrong.
Oh, for sure. I forgot that. Yeah,
I love Sandlot too, and it was cool. Like, they had the anniversary here, and some of the guys from the cast were here, and that was so cool, just experiencing that. For me, I think Angels in the Outfield and Little Big League are the two, as for kids baseball movies, super underrated. Those are my two favorites. But it's also, I think, part of it too is I don't know. I knew I couldn't play. So the idea of like being the manager as a kid was like pretty cool. So maybe I like Little Big League for that reason.
Sure.
Bull Durham, hands down for me. And you could probably speak more to the
if you
actualities of how real that movie
like
is.
That's about as close as it gets to a movie being made about the minors, that shows you what it's like. And Kevin Costner obviously is a legend in baseball movies, and it's a great movie to kind of give you an insight of like what it's kind of like.
Yeah, I'm definitely more Bull Durham than I am Field of Dreams. I like Field of Dreams, but no, Bull Durham's great. And part of it too, like when you're in the game, like it's more than what happens on the field. There's a whole culture of baseball that is so different, and you get to be a part of it. And then it's so different from the major leagues to the minor leagues. And I've had a chance to go out and spend some time out in San Bernardino with the Inland Empire 66ers. And, whenever there's a player that's on a rehab assignment, I'm usually out there following them and checking that out. And, it's just fun being a part of that culture and getting to experience just what baseball is really like. We all see the major leaguers and we all see the guys at the highest end and the Corey Seager, Max Scherzer contracts. That's such a small fraction of what baseball really is. And Bull Durham, I think, opens a lot of eyes to that.
Definitely. Totally agree with you there. Last thing, just in general, maybe expectations or thoughts on 2022. I know we kind of been talking about it, if everybody's healthy scenarios, but hopefully there's some more moves and free agency made by the Angels after, the lockout's hopefully done soon. Just your thoughts going into 2022.
Thoughts going into 2022. Get this offense right, score a ton of runs, make some noise. If the pitching I think the pitching with what it is right now, with the offense being great, I think you push for a wild card. You get one more dude, now you're pushing for a division. You get two more dudes, now you're pushing for a World Series. I think that's where the Angels are at. They've done enough already to be in the mix, I think, to be a postseason contender. But again, like I talked about before, I know the people in this building, it's not about just getting to the playoffs. It's about getting there and winning there. So the work is not done for Perry Manassian. I like the culture that's being built. I think Joe Maddon's got things going in the right direction. I have very high hopes for 2022. But I will also say that those high hopes are contingent on the health of Mike Trout and Anthony Rendon and Shohei Ohtani and Noah Syndergaard and Raisel Iglesias. I mean, those top-end guys, they all need to be what you expect from them. And I know that's a lot to ask for, but if the Angels can do that, I think they can have a really, really fun 2022 season. And who knows, maybe they shock the world.
Hey, that would be fun to watch, man. Definitely. Yep. Trent, I really appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on the show, and best of luck moving forward next year. I really appreciate it.
I thank you, Brett. Appreciate you having me, and all the best. See you.
My thanks to Trent Rush. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the movie segment as well. Angels in the Outfield. How could you hate it? It's a classic movie, especially if you're, grew up watching Angel games. Like it's awesome with the all-star cast they had and all the other movies. So hope you guys enjoyed that interview as much as I did, especially Angel fans. That's plugged in Angel stuff right there. A reporter and broadcaster for the team. So there you go. As always, you can follow me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. You guys know the drill. So check me out on all channels: YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe, like, share, comment, review. Any way you can help the show, that would be awesome. And have a great week. I'll see you guys soon, and enjoy your day.